Welcome to the T.A.C. show. Today with our guest, BOCES graduate Eric Eastman. So, what was your BOCE experience like? What made you go want to do BOCES in the first place?
Well, with Lansing, we did a kind of like a tour in like 10th grade of like the whole BOCES campus and a couple different programs. And at the end of that tour, we were able to like kind of put in our preferences for if we wanted to go and for which courses. So naturally, when I went, I visited the culinary because that was a big thing with my family. My dad cooks a lot, so I figured why not? I think that'd be fun. Good life lesson over there.
What got you into cooking? Like, what type of recipes were you in?
In BOCES, we did pretty much everything, but what really kind of stuck out to me was actually baking. Like I really liked the technicality of it, how specific it can be, how exact you have to be. Like that's kind of just the person that I am. I enjoy that kind of part of it, as well as like the kind of, I guess you would call it the beauty piece, like decorating and making things look nice.
So you spent half your days at BOCES?
Yes. Yep.
Around 12 o'clock you just left and then you spent the rest of the day there.
Yeah, it was. I think junior year it was a PM shift. So like you said, at 12 we would go, and then senior year it kind of flip flopped. So we went right in the morning at like 7:30 or 8 o'clock or whenever that was. And then we got back at like 12.
So what was the main difference between a freshman BOCES class and a senior class? Like, did they really separate them? Since I know high school is somewhat separate, not as separated as middle school, but how exactly did they do the classes?
Yeah, so it was since it was kind of split and like there was only kind of like two different classes, the morning and the night and the afternoon class. They were able to be separated pretty easily. I mean, there was just one culinary class, and there was for the morning and just one in the evening. So it wasn't like there were multiple classrooms. But I guess you could say like the curriculum was different. The morning class kind of went over like the basics of everything, how to do certain meth cuts or cook certain things. And then in the afternoon class, they actually run a cafe that's open to all staff and students on campus. So they actually serve food to the public.
So the building's quite big, right?
Yes. Yeah, I guess you could consider it a campus. I mean, there's a couple different buildings that are kind of connected by pathways. There are certain like buildings that kind of stand on their own that I know, like I think it was like auto body or like those big like heavy mechanical ones kind of have their own area.
Do you feel that BOCES, in terms of its culinary education, taught you more than facts when it came to cooking?
Yes. I think only because we were able to have every day dedicate like however long it was, like 3-4 hours just to like the culinary aspect of it. Like it gave them the ability to definitely specialize and focus the education.
Yes, I remember when I did facts a few years ago, when I did cooking, we made our bread. And it was so weird having these blocks for it. Like the entire day would just like be shifted around just to make some and cook some bread. It was fun and interesting, but I bet you it probably fits way better in BOCES schedule, doesn't it?
It does, but when it comes to cooking, it is very time consuming. So that's just something that I've learned throughout my education is that actually when I'm in college right now, when I first came here, I had lab classes in kitchens, and they were 8 hour, 7 hour classes. So that was kind of how long it takes each day to teach certain things.
What chefs would you set as like your inspiration for your style of cooking? Like any that you really like a lot, or do you just do your own style of cooking?
Well, obviously, like my dad, like I said, my dad was a big kind of influence on me. He was always the one cooking at home, doing all sorts of new things, whether it be grilling, smoking meats, uh, making breakfast like eggs and bacon. That's what got me started. But Miss Fitzgerald, the BOCES teacher, she was another really big influence. She was passionate. She was very caring. She taught everybody equally. So, and it was just, I learned a lot there. As for right now, I would say I wouldn't really say I have inspirations as like, I guess like famous chefs in the world, but just kind of the people that I've grown up with.
What's the most stressful thing you ever had to cook? Like anything crazy?
Oh, yes, actually. So in culinary school where I'm at right now, we had to do these things called cooking practicals. So it was where we had a set list of things that we had to cook in, I think it was 2 days time. And for me, I had to make eclairs. I had to make and decorate a cake. And there was another thing that I can't remember, but it was something small. But in the middle of that, my cake, while it was baking, it kind of collapsed. So like, you know how cakes are supposed to be like, kind of like have a nice dome shape on them when they bake. Well, mine like sunk in. So it made it very difficult to kind of decorate that, and it caused a lot of stress, especially because this was like a big graded assignment for us.
Yeah. So the bigger things you have to cook, the bigger the grades.
Yeah, definitely, because that just comes with more how do you say it, more pressure and more stress, just because more could go wrong.
So your teachers were not just the mentors, but they were also the food critics too.
Yes, yep, they taught everything, as well as once we produced that kind of item, they were the one that kind of critiqued it and told us what was either good about it or bad about it.
Yeah. What do you think of Ratatouille? Do you think that's a good film of cooking?
Actually, I do. I really like the way that they talk about like food combinations and the memory of food. That's something that's honestly a really big thing that even I still think about, talk about. Like there are certain foods that I eat that just bring back memories and just are will forever be better for that reason.
Yeah, you know, it's just, it provides a thing most films like most films are incredibly cliche about the entire restaurant business, but Ratatouille, like you had the same guy who made The Incredibles and worked on The Simpsons, so you have this rat in Paris who dreams of being a chef, so he controls this like illegitimate son's hair who's not really good at cooking, just so both of them can cook and make money to
That's
satisfy this salty food critic.
Well, they're also doing it for the passion. Like Remy's not really doing it for the money.
Oh,
Maybe the guy is, but Remy's definitely doing it because that's what his
he's doing it
passion
for
is.
the
And that,
he's doing it for the passion, but you know he also has to do it for the food. Like as a rat in Paris, like you can't really get much
that's true.
to like go around and scurry.
Just get what you can.
Yeah. So what are your plans right now for your culinary career?
So actually, unfortunately, I wouldn't say it's taken a side turn, but it's kind of changed path a little bit. Since I've been here, I've taken a wine class, which really sparked my interest. And um, now, as a part of my major, I'm have a concentration in advanced wine studies. So I would say that I've kind of verged off of the food path and the culinary path and kind of ventured more into like the business and the beverage industry. So even though I'm not in the food aspect of it right now, I would say that food is definitely my foundation.
But isn't basically wine a food? Because it's basically grape. It's basically old grape juice.
Yes, exactly. So there's a lot of still like it's in the same realm, that's for sure. There's a lot of technicalities behind it, like recipes and procedures that you have to follow. And
what made you like really want to switch paths and stop focusing less on foods and focus more on brewing and beveraging and all that stuff?
Um, I don't know if there's exactly like one specific moment. I think it's just kind of been the fact that uh, when I was in that class, I realized how much there was to learn about wine, and that's kind of something that is important to me. Is always being able to keep learning and continuously learning new skills, new knowledge, and the amount of information out there about wine and the beverage industry is just massive, and that's something that I really want to keep pursuing. Is just always keep learning.
Oh, that's really interesting. So, what exactly do you need for a license to brew stuff? Like, you have to be over 21, right? But like, what type of credentials do you need to go and like make alcoholic beverages?
So I'm not exactly sure like what the um, I know there's different ones for like say like beer, or there's different licenses you need for like beer, whiskey, or wine. Um, I know you would need a distillation license for whiskey, but you would need there's like certain uh,
It depends on how much alcohol you're using per volume, like
yes, definitely,
certifications.
and also how much you're going to produce. Like if you were going to produce like a small amount for like your household, you would need a different license rather than if you're going to produce for nationwide transport and distribution.
So, was college like Animal House when you first arrived? You just like
um, I would say it's a lot of fun. It's definitely a lot more freeing. You're able to make your own decisions. You're able to make your own uh, choices. But unfortunately, my small culinary school, it wasn't as big and like kind of party central as like the mainstream colleges. Like we don't have Greek life here. We don't really have any locations for big parties. So any kind of
oh,
partying that I did, unfortunately, it was small scale.
I don't know. I've heard stories of like of giant parties from some of these more minor colleges, like either if they're from a few years ago all the way up to 15 years ago.
Oh, the older parties
So
are the best. They didn't have to worry about technology or people recording them.
yeah. So what was it like graduating? Like, were you excited? Like, did you immediately just plan to go out and get a scholarship? Like, what was your goal back then compared to now?
So my goal back then, I guess was yes, I was very excited. I was very happy. I was excited. I loved everything that I learned at BOCES as well as Lansing. But for BOCES, I was ready to use whatever knowledge that I got as well as experience that I got. I was able to do an internship while I was at BOCES, but um, once I graduated, I was very excited to get out into the world and just keep learning.
Yep. So you, so did you just like do a job for a few months and then go to college? Or you just go straight to college after a
Yes,
few months?
I did. I did have a job for a little while. So the place that I internship when I was at BOCES was actually Cornell, the hotel school there. They have like a nice big working kitchen. So I think it was every other day for 2 or 3 hours. I would go there and just kind of get my feet wet, start working a little bit. But once I graduated, I was able to just start working there full time. And I didn't go, or I didn't move into college until what was it? The beginning of October. So from June to October, I had that whole time to work.
Uh, what would you advice would you give to like somebody who's recently starting out at BOCES in the culinary section? Like, what type of advice would you give to newcomers these days?
I would say keep your mind open. Keep your mind open and don't be afraid to try new things. Always be willing to accept that somebody knows more than you, as well as there's always more to learn. Um, whether it be a new technique, how to make something, or just really anything in general. Like you're not going to get very far if you're closed-minded and kind of go against people that are trying to teach you. So in this business and industry, it's essential to keep that open mind and always be learning.
Yeah. How exactly do your colleges and like do your winery classes during COVID? Like, are they just 100% virtual, or are you guys actually there in limited capacity?
So our kitchen classes, fortunately, I finished my kitchen classes before COVID started, so I don't have to worry about that. But they are still able to take place in full capacity, but they were always kind of smaller classes to begin with, whether it be like 15 to 20, kind of in between there. But they have the face mask, and they also wear a full like a face shield too. So we've always had a kind of head coverage, but as soon as COVID started, we implemented the face mask and the face shield, and always extra protection with like gloves and washing your hands and that kind of stuff. But
Do you prefer the mask or the shield?
um, I prefer the mask. I think it's just easier, not a big deal.
Do you feel that Gordon Ramsay goes too hard on his people while cooking? Do you think he's actually a good chef himself?
Um, I think yes to both. I think he does go hard sometimes, a little too hard, but it does make for good TV, I will say. But he is a very good chef. He knows his stuff. Um, the chef that he actually learned under, his name was Marco Pierre White. He is one of the best chefs of all time. He kind of transformed the industry. Uh, he's groundbreaking. He knows his stuff, whether it be from experience or trying new things. I do think he's a great chef.
Where did the origin of the chef's white hat? I know they don't. Not too many wear big white poofy hats these days, but where they get that idea from?
So that was part of our uniform in school. The tall, not like the poofy ones, but like the tall, like straight ones.
Oh yeah, the modern ones.
Yeah, so they're called toques. It's kind of just like French for a hat, but kind of the uh, legend behind it is that they would have like pleats on them, so they would technically have 101, and that was supposed to represent all the different ways that someone should be able to cook an egg differently.
So the hat is supposed to represent the many ways an egg is supposed it can be cooked.
Yes and no. That's kind of I think the hat's just part of like the kind of the uniform that um, evolved with the profession along the ages. But as it became more stylish to be a chef, that definitely became a part of it.
Did you struggle with cooking at first, or were you always like really good at it from the start?
I did, yeah, I struggled at first. I wasn't really ever the best in the class or the most knowledgeable, but as long as you have that passion and that kind of knowledge about what you're doing and you take the time to study and practice, improvement is inevitable. You can never stop improving. And I definitely didn't start out as the best in my class, either in BOCES or at school here. So um,
Did you use recipes a lot at first? Like how many years into like your culinary career were you like, I don't need recipes anymore. I got this memorized in my head. I can look at a meal. Now I know how to do the meal.
so for baking, it's a little harder to do that, but I was able to do that. I want to say like starting last year or the year before, during my summer jobs when I was working in kitchens, I was kind of doing recipes over and over and over, like day in, day out. So I would kind of get the same numbers kind of burned into my head. So, but different baking recipes, like if I just looked at what an item was, it would be a lot harder because the numbers do have to be more exact. But if it were to be something culinary, for instance, say like a braised beef, all I need is like a short rib, onion, celery, carrot, garlic, red wine, beef stock, and some herbs and spices.
So you also did sports too, right? Like,
Yes.
did you only do them? Did you do them in high school, or like did you do them in college too? Like,
Yeah,
what did you do?
I did them in high school. I did the football, baseball, and basketball year round. And then when I came to school here, since we're a smaller school, we don't have as big of a sports program. Like I think we only have 5 collegiate sports programs, and it's I want to say track or cross country, tennis, soccer, volleyball, and basketball. But I was able to play basketball, so for 2 years I was able to play, and then COVID kind of came and hit, and then our team got shut down.
Uh, so did your baseball team or football they ever get into any state or regional championships, anything like that?
We got to the state finals, or not state, sorry, sectional finals, my junior year in baseball, but otherwise, no, unfortunately, our teams never really went anywhere. We were always like 1 or 2 teams behind, and just never could get to that next level.
What are sectional finals like?
Sectional finals, it's just like kind of the teams in our area, like it was always like us, Trumansburg, Union Springs, and then even some teams that are a little further, like Sydney, Green, yeah, something like that. Definitely more competitive because the season's on the line, but they were still fun.
So they only have this for high school, right? There's no finals and modified teams.
Correct. Yeah, I think it's only varsity actually. I don't think JV has it either.
Yeah. Since the only finals I ever heard of when I was on a swim team, and that was only because we always went with the varsity people.
Right. Yeah, it's the same. It's the same kind of concept. It goes across all sports.
So, do you like basketball more than baseball, or like what was your favorite sport out of the 3?
I would say baseball was my favorite, but that was just high school. Like coming into college, since basketball was the only thing that I could play here, I still love basketball. I love it so much. Like I would play it year round if I could, but same thing goes for baseball.
Yeah. I like watching basketball too. Babe Ruth was my favorite player.
Really?
I liked how his trick shots. And I'm just kidding. I know he's a baseball player. I know some history.
Yeah, Babe
So
Ruth was one of the greats.
so what do you think of the Super Bowl? Like, what do you think the Kansas City Chiefs got wrong with their football plan?
Honestly, I think the I want to say the Bucks kind of just like took it to them on the defensive side. Like if the Chiefs kind of game plan better for their defense and like what kind of blitzes they would bring and what kind of different coverages they would have, then that might have gone better for them. But the Bucks defense just kind of overwhelmed Mahomes and the receivers.
Do you feel that the Bucks became a little bit OP after they got Brady and Gronk?
Maybe not OP because they didn't dominate all season long, but it definitely bumped them up like they showed in the Super Bowl material.
So basically, September through the December is the normal season, and then from December to January, they have like the semifinals and finals and playoffs in which all the teams of the different sections fight off against each other until 2 of the sections get rounded up and then they face each other at the Super Bowl.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's interesting. Shoeless Joe actually cheated and threw the game back a century ago.
Personally, I want to say no. I want to believe that he did good, but I don't know. It doesn't look too good for him.
So basically, his entire White Sox team, like, didn't the Mafia paid him to throw a game,
I think so.
lose
Yeah.
a game during the and then they figured it out.
I think that was what happened. Yeah.
I'm surprised they had good investigation back then. Like how what do you know how to tell if somebody's intentionally losing compared to like just a normal loss? Like, is there any major difference?
Yeah, it's kind of you can kind of see it in like certain plays when they like kind of you can see them stop giving effort or like they kind of miss a play that would usually be a lot easier to make. And it's just kind of those little things that add up and make that difference.
What's your favorite sports film?
Sports film. Ooh. I really like The Blind Side, but I also really like Remember the Titans.
Uh,
Both football
Ro-
movies, but both.
would Raging Bull be considered a sports film? Boxing's a
Oh,
sport.
yeah, that's definitely a good one. That's an old one.
An old one. It's from 40 years ago. That's
Yeah,
Robert De Niro's still alive. Martin Scorsese's still alive. And
yeah.
just because it was made in black and white, it doesn't mean it's everybody talks about The Empire Strikes Back, and yet it was made the same time.
That's true. That's a good point. Everybody forgets time.
Everybody but like David Rouse, Kenny Baker, and Carrie Fisher are still around from that cast. So
Yeah.
yeah, so is Ratatouille also your favorite culinary film, or like do you prefer any over Ratatouille?
There's a bunch of good culinary movies out right now. Like there's actually one called Chef that's about the kind of journey from being like a nice fine dining chef that rediscovers his love for food and opens a food truck.
Is that
Making
John Favreau film, the guy who made
yeah,
Zathura and
yeah, that's the same one. Um, yeah, I love that one. And then there's another one called Burnt that's about Bradley Cooper, and he's just kind of like this really hot-headed fine dining chef going for Michelin stars and how big of a deal that is.
so yeah, John Favreau's sort of interesting. Like he went from basically guest starring in The Sopranos to making Elf to making a live action Lion King and blockbusters, and then making a Star Wars TV show all over the
Yeah,
course of 20 years.
yeah, he's had an amazing career, I would say.
Yeah, people often consider Chef his best film.
I would believe that. That was a really good movie. I like that one a lot. I agree.
Well, anyway, I sure hope you have fun with your college. I sure hope that wine career goes well for you. And thanks
Thank
for
you.
talking.
Of course,
And
not a problem. Happy to be here.
oh yeah, anytime. And make sure to watch more episodes on YouTube and Spotify, usually uploaded every Friday.